I want to tell you a story about how I changed my life in just 5 months. My name is Leo, and I am 28 years old. I come from a warm, sunny country called Viridia. Just 5 months ago, my English was very, very bad. I could not even say a full sentence like, "Hello, how are you?" without stopping and thinking a lot. My mind felt empty when I tried to speak English, and my tongue felt heavy and slow. I was completely lost with the language. But today, I can speak English easily and well. I want to tell you how I learned English so fast, without paying for expensive lessons, without going to a country where people speak English, and without wasting time on things that did not help. This is not just my story. It can be your story too if you have ever felt sad, stuck, or shy because of your English. I was exactly where you are, and I promise that if you listen to my full journey, step by step, you will know exactly how to make your English much better. My journey did not start with a happy feeling. It started with a big problem that changed everything for me. I always dreamed of working for a big company that works all over the world. My dream job was to be a computer programmer at a huge technology company. I loved making computer programs, and I was very good at it. I worked day and night for many years to become the best I could be. Finally, after all that hard work, I got my chance. I sent my job application to a very big company, one that had offices in a large city far away, in a place called Northern Port. One day, I received an email that said, "Congratulations, you are chosen for an interview." I was so excited. I started to imagine my new life in Northern Port, making good money and working with very smart people. But then, the online interview happened. I remember it very clearly, as if it was yesterday. I opened my computer screen, and there were 3 interviewers. All of them spoke English as their first language. They started talking, and their words came out so fast that I felt like someone had pressed a fast-forward button on their voices. I could not understand almost anything they said. They asked me the first question, "Leo, can you tell us a little about yourself and your work as a computer programmer?" I felt very scared inside. I knew the answer in my head in my own language, but the English words did not come out. I tried to speak, saying things like, yes, I am, computer. I do programming. Many projects. Good. I am very good. They looked at me. The quiet time felt like a sharp knife in my stomach. They asked another question, but I still could not answer it well. In the end, one of them smiled and said, "All right, Leo, thank you for your time." I knew exactly what that meant. I had failed. I did not get the job. It was not because I was not good enough at my computer programming work, but because I could not speak English. On that day, I understood how important English was. It was not just a language. It was the key that opened the door to my dream. And right then, I did not have that key. I felt ashamed, embarrassed, and angry at myself. For many years, I had told myself, "I do not need English. I will just be good at my job, and that will be enough." But now I saw the truth. Without English, I was invisible. That night, I made a very strong decision. I would learn English, and I would learn it very fast. Most people, when they start learning English, do one thing first. They pay for expensive lessons or classes, but I did not do that. Why? Because I had already tried them before, and they did not work for me. About a year ago, I paid for an online English class. The teacher made me learn long lists of words by heart, do many grammar exercises from books, and study boring rules. I also tried a private tutor for a few weeks and a phone app that felt more like a game than real learning. But after 3 months of these things, when I tried to have a real conversation, I still could not speak. So, I knew that expensive classes and old ways were not the answer. If I wanted to learn English fast, I needed something completely different. I needed a way that worked in real life. And that is when I started my special 5-month method, which I will share with you now, step by step. Part 1. The first 15 days, using what I knew. The biggest mistake that people who are just starting to learn English make is that they think they need to learn more and more words. I thought the same thing at first. I thought, if I learn 1,000 new words, I will speak perfectly. But the truth was, I already knew hundreds of words, and I still could not speak. So, for the first 15 days, I did not study any new words. Instead, I did something much more powerful. I started learning how to really use the words I already knew. Here is exactly what I did. First, I made a survival sentence list. I sat down and thought, what do I actually need to say every day? I wrote down about 50 simple sentences that I needed in real life, like, hello, how are you? Can you repeat that? I do not understand. I am learning English. Or, I need a coffee, please. I wrote these sentences on small cards that I could carry with me. Every morning, I read these 50 sentences out loud, not just once or twice, but 10 times. At first, my tongue felt very slow and awkward. But after 5 days, these sentences became easy and came out automatically. Second, I started speaking to myself in English every single day. This was one of the most powerful things I did. Whenever I was alone, I spoke English to myself. For example, when I was in the shower, I would say, I am taking a shower. The water is hot. I feel relaxed. When I made my breakfast, I said, I am making eggs. I like eggs. They are easy to cook. When I went for a walk in my small neighborhood park, I would say, I am walking in the park. The trees are green. The sun feels warm. At first, I felt a little silly, but then I realized this was my own private classroom. No one could hear me, and no one could judge me. And in just 1 week, my brain started thinking in English without effort. Third, I practiced a few sentences a day, but with a special trick. Every day I chose 5 sentences from short videos or real conversations I heard online. But I did not just read them. I copied them exactly. I repeated them 10 times, but I tried to use the same feeling, the same speed, and the same way of saying the words as the person who spoke English as their first language. This helped me to make my accent better and to sound more natural. By the end of the first 15 days, something changed inside me. I stopped translating words in my head. I could say basic sentences without thinking about them. I felt much more confident, but this was just the beginning, because after 15 days, I started the real practice. Part 2. Real practice begins. Building fluency. After 15 days of fixing my biggest mistake, I was finally ready to take the next step. I could say basic sentences without thinking, and I felt more confident, but I knew this was not enough. I did not want to just say short sentences. I wanted to have real conversations. I wanted to understand people whose first language was English without translating in my head. I wanted to speak English easily and well. So, I created a new plan. This plan would change everything. And if you follow it, you will get better faster than you ever thought possible. I realized something important. When I tried to speak English, my brain was slow. I knew words, but I could not put them together quickly. I needed a way to make speaking feel natural. I started using a method that I now call the question-answer method. This method is simple, but very powerful. Here is how it worked. First, I asked myself a simple question in English. Second, I answered it immediately without thinking too much. Third, I repeated the process with different answers, making them longer each time. For example, I started with an easy question. What did you do today? At first, my answer was short. I worked. but I made myself say more. I worked on my computer program. Then, I worked on my computer program for 3 hours. Then, I worked on my computer program for 3 hours and then I took a break. And finally, I worked on my computer program for 3 hours and then I took a break and had some coffee. Every time I answered, I added more details. This trained my brain to think in English and to speak without stopping. Another example. What did you eat for breakfast? First answer. I ate eggs. Then, I ate eggs and toast. Then, I ate eggs, toast, and a banana. Then, I ate eggs, toast, and a banana because I was really hungry. And finally, I ate eggs, toast, and a banana because I was really hungry. And I love eating a big breakfast. I did this every single day for at least 30 minutes. My speaking speed became much faster. My sentences became longer, and I stopped translating in my head. One of my biggest problems was how I said words. Even when I spoke English, I still sounded like a person from another country. People whose first language was English understood me, but my accent was strong. So, I used the echo technique. This is the best way to make your pronunciation better without a teacher. Here is how it works. First, I listen to a person speaking English from movies, short videos on the internet, or audio stories. Second, I stopped the sound after each sentence. Third, I repeated the sentence exactly the same way, with the same speed, the same feeling, and the same way of saying the words. For example, I took a short part from a movie. The person said, "I do not know what you are talking about." I stopped the sound and repeated, "I do not know what you're talking about." At first, it felt difficult, but after repeating 10 times, my voice started to sound similar to the person speaking. Another example from an audio story. It was a beautiful day, so I decided to go for a walk. I stopped the sound and repeated, "It was a beautiful day, so I decided to go for a walk." I did this every day for 30 minutes. After just 1 month, my pronunciation improved so much that even people whose first language was English started saying, "Wow, your English sounds really natural." I knew that having many words was important, but I also knew that learning long lists of words by heart does not work. So, I needed a better method. I used the story method. Here is how it works. First, I took 5 new words every day. Second, I created a short, simple story using all 5 words. Third, I read the story out loud 10 times. Fourth, I tried to use these words in my real conversations or in my thinking. For example, new words might be excited, invitation, party, arrive, surprise. My story would be, I was very excited because I received an invitation to a big party. When I arrived at the party, I got a huge surprise. It was my birthday party. I did this every day. After 3 months, I had learned over 1,000 new words without learning anything by heart from long lists. One of the biggest problems English learners have is that they think in their own language first, then translate into English. This makes speaking slow and not natural. So, I trained my brain to think only in English. Here is how. First, I described everything around me in English. For example, when I walked outside, I said in my mind, "The sky is blue, the weather is warm, I see people walking. That man is wearing a red shirt." Second, I asked myself questions and answered them in English. For example, what am I doing right now? Answer, I am sitting in a chair, drinking coffee, and writing in my notebook. Third, I wrote my daily journal in English every night. I wrote about my day in English. At first, I wrote very simple sentences. But after 1 month, my writing became more natural. After a few weeks, I noticed something amazing. I was no longer translating. English words came naturally into my mind. There was one more thing I did that was simple, but very powerful. I made a rule. Every day I had to speak English for at least 2 hours. No excuses. If I had no one to talk to, I talked to myself or pretended to talk to a friend. If I did not have much time, I spoke English while doing my daily activities, like cooking, cleaning my room, or walking to the store. If I felt lazy, I reminded myself, English is my future. I cannot quit. Part 3. My final breakthrough. Mastering the details. Now that I had built the habit of listening and repeating, I wanted to push myself further. But I also realized something very important. Just listening and speaking would not be enough if I did not understand the way English sentences are built properly. I did not want to make mistakes that could confuse people, and I definitely wanted to sound more natural. I started watching how people whose first language was English structured their sentences. Every time I heard a sentence, I did not just repeat it. I asked myself, why is this sentence built like this? For example, I heard people say, I have been learning English for 5 months. But in school, I had learned to say, I am learning English for 5 months. That was my first big realization. The English we learn in school is often different from the English people actually speak every day. So, I started looking into these differences. I learned about how times are used in real life. When do people use the present perfect continuous time? Why do they say, I have been learning, instead of, I am learning? I found that small details like these made a huge difference in sounding natural. I wrote down common sentence structures and tried using them in my daily practice. One of my biggest challenges was the small words like on, in, and at. Why do we say on the bus, but in the car? Why at night, but in the morning? I kept a small notebook and wrote down confusing prepositions with examples. Whenever I had doubts, I searched for answers online or listened carefully to how people whose first language was English use them. To take it further, I started writing a daily diary in English. Every night I wrote about my day. At first, my writing was very simple. Today, I went to work. I was tired. I ate pizza. It was good. But I wanted to improve. So I asked myself, how do people whose first language is English write? I read simple stories, short articles, and news reports online, and I noticed how they structured their sentences. Then, I tried to copy that style in my diary. One thing that really made my learning faster was shadowing even more deeply. I found videos of people whose first language was English talking. I put on headphones and repeated every single word immediately after them, trying to match their speed and how they said the words exactly. I did this for at least 20 minutes a day. In just a few weeks, my pronunciation improved very, very much. Another trick that helped me was watching English movies with simple subtitles. But instead of just watching without thinking, I paused after every sentence and repeated it. I focused on how they said the words, the up and down sound of their voice, and the rhythm. Slowly, my English started sounding more natural, like theirs. At this stage, I realized something very important. English is not just about words and grammar rules. It is also about having confidence. Many people know English words but are too scared to speak. I made a decision. I would not be afraid of making mistakes. I started speaking to people in English whenever I had the chance. At work, at the store, with friends. I spoke, even when I was not sure if my English was perfect. And I noticed something surprising. People understood me, even if I made small mistakes. They did not laugh at me. They were happy that I was trying. This gave me the courage to keep going. But then I faced my biggest fear. Talking to people whose first language was English. I was very, very scared that they would not understand me, or that I would stop speaking completely. So I came up with a strategy. I prepared 10 common conversation topics and practiced them every day. For example, How was your day? What do you do for work? What is your favorite food? I practiced answering these questions easily and well. Then, I took the big step. I joined an online group where people from different countries practiced English together. At first, I was very nervous, but soon I realized everyone there was trying to learn, just like me. I made friends from different countries like Canada and Australia, and we practiced together. This not only made my English better, but also made learning fun. As I reached the final stage of my English learning journey, I felt a strong confidence growing inside me. I was no longer the same person who had been rejected because of bad English skills. I had changed myself step by step. Through working hard every day, practicing a lot, and having the right way of thinking. Now, I want to share the last and most important lessons I learned so that you too can speak English well. One day, I was speaking to myself in the mirror, as I had done so many times before. But this time, something was different. I was not stopping. I was not translating in my head. The words were flowing naturally, one after another. It felt like magic, but in reality, it was the result of months of hard work. That same day, I decided to test how much I had improved by having a deep conversation with a person whose first language was English. I joined an online meeting where people from different countries talked about many topics. At first, I was nervous, but I reminded myself, I have worked too hard to doubt myself now. And then I spoke. The words came out clearly and with confidence. I did not struggle to find the right words. I understood what others were saying without feeling lost. People listened to me, nodded their heads to show they agreed, and even asked me questions. It was an amazing moment. That was the day I knew I could speak English very well. 5 months after I started my journey, I applied for my dream job again. This time, I was not the same Leo who had walked in nervously months ago. I was not the guy who stopped speaking, who felt small, who could not find the right words. No, this time I walked into that online interview with confidence. I sat in front of the interviewer, not as someone who feared English, but as someone who had learned it well. I spoke clearly. I answered every question easily. I was not just speaking English. I was showing that I had truly mastered it, and I could see it in their eyes. They were impressed, not just with my language, but with my hard work, my strong will, and my change. A few days later, I got the phone call, and I will never forget that moment. Leo, congratulations! You got the job. For a second, I could not believe it. My dream job. The same company that rejected me before, but now they wanted me. My starting pay was a large amount of money each month. Much more than I had ever imagined earning. I just stood there, holding my phone, shaking, my eyes full of happy tears. The first thing I did was call my parents. Mom! Dad! I did it! My mother started crying on the other end of the phone. My father, a man who rarely shows feelings, simply said, "We always knew you could." And in that moment, I realized I was not just doing this for me, I was doing it for them too. With my first salary, I bought my father a beautiful, warm jacket, something he had always wanted but never bought for himself, especially useful for the colder weather in Northern Port. For my mother, I bought a beautiful new set of cooking pots she had always wished for. She had given up so much for me, for our family, and now it was my turn to give back. When I handed them the gifts, they refused at first. "We do not need anything, son," they said. But I shook my head and said, "No. This is my way of saying thank you. Thank you for believing in me, even when I did not believe in myself." And that was the moment I understood. It was all worth it. Every struggle, every late night studying, every moment of feeling frustrated, every time I felt like giving up, it was all worth it. Key lessons from my journey. Now let me share the most important things I learned in my journey that helped me to speak English well in just a few months. First, your way of thinking is everything. Most people fail to learn English because they believe they cannot do it. I used to think the same way, but the moment I changed my mind, everything changed. I told myself, English is not difficult. I can learn it just like any other skill. I stopped saying, I am bad at English, and started saying, I am improving every day. If you think you cannot do it, you will not. But if you believe you can, you will find a way. Second, surround yourself with English. I made English a part of my daily life. I changed my phone's language to English. I watched only videos and movies in English. I listened to English songs, even if I did not understand all the words. I followed people who spoke English on social media. Every day I was feeding my brain with English. I also made sure to speak and think in English. Whenever I looked at something, I would say its name in English in my mind. If I saw a car, I would say, that is a blue car. It is moving fast. Small things like this helped me to learn new words naturally. Third, speak without fear. Many people are afraid of making mistakes, but mistakes are a part of learning. I used to be scared of speaking, but then I realized people whose first language is English do not care if you make mistakes. They are happy that you are trying. So, I forced myself to speak. I spoke to shopkeepers in English. I asked strangers for directions in English. And, as you know, I even started talking to myself in English whenever I was alone. The more I spoke, the better I became. Fourth, active listening and shadowing are very important. Listening is just as important as speaking. I trained my ears to understand spoken English by listening to English audio stories, longer audio talks, and conversations. But I did not just listen quietly. I practiced shadowing. Shadowing means listening to a sentence and repeating it immediately, trying to copy the way they said the words and the rhythm. This helped me improve my accent and speak more easily. Fifth, expand your vocabulary smartly. At first, I tried to learn long lists of words by heart, but I quickly realized that was useless. Instead, I learned words in a situation. I focused on whole phrases instead of just single words. For example, instead of just learning the word happy, I learned phrases like, I feel so happy today. And that movie made me really happy. Learning words in situations made it easier to remember them and to use them naturally. Sixth, learn grammar without books. I did not spend hours studying grammar books. Instead, I learned grammar naturally by listening and speaking. When I made a mistake, I noted it and corrected myself. For example, I used to say, he go to school. When someone corrected me, I understood the correct sentence. He goes to school. The best way to learn grammar is by using the language, not by learning rules by heart. Seventh, consistency is more important than being perfect. Some people try to learn everything perfectly before they start speaking. That is a mistake. I did not wait until I was perfect. I started speaking from the very first day. Even when I only knew a few words, I used them. I made a rule. Every day I will do something in English. Some days I spoke for 10 minutes. Some days I wrote a short paragraph. Some days I just listened to an audio story. The key was to do something every day. Even on days when I felt lazy, I still did something. You do not need expensive classes. You do not need a perfect place to learn. You just need a strong wish and a promise to practice every day. Imagine yourself 6 months from now, speaking English easily, with confidence. Imagine the good chances that will come your way. Imagine how proud you will feel. Start today. Speak, listen, practice, and never give up. Your future self will thank you. This is not just about learning English. It is about changing your life. And now, I want to say something to you. If I can do it, you can do it too. It does not matter where you start. It does not matter how bad you think your English is. What matters is that you start today, right now. I know it is hard. I know it feels impossible sometimes. But trust me, the only thing stopping you from speaking English well is doing it every day. Stop doubting yourself. Stop finding reasons not to. Surround yourself with English. Speak, listen, read, write every single day. Make mistakes. Learn from them. Get better. Because here is the truth. The hard work of learning is temporary, but the sadness of not trying lasts forever. So, what will you choose? Choose hard work. Choose to grow. Choose success. Your journey to speaking English well starts now.